what's going on overseas is an attack against Muslim people.
If I would get on the bus to Ramallah from outside the...
You would be safe. 100%.
If Jesus is the Messiah and he did all those miracles, how will you know when the actual Messiah comes?
And I wanna give the
You
message.
don't think when you speak.
Separating religion is very equal to racism.
The name Palestine is very recent. You know that, right? Here we are in downtown Chicago, right in front of the historical water tower. And, you know, it's freezing. I mean, it's absolutely freezing here. The temperature is very, very cold. It's windy here in the Windy City, but our hearts are warm because we're meeting all kinds of wonderful, beautiful people here. I want to thank our sponsor, Skive. Skive is the solution for you for all of your important custom software needs. You need to find out about this company. It can save you a fortune of time, money, attention, and energy. And we thank Skive for being our sponsor for this program. And we invite the people here in Chicago to come ask me anything. I'm an Orthodox rabbi. Maybe you want to talk. I hope you do, because it's cold, and the sooner we get you over here, the faster we can go back to the warm car. Okay, so it's good to meet you.
It's very great to meet you, Rabbi.
And I would love to know what you want to talk about, what you want to ask today.
So my question is, I'm a military mom, and with everything that's going on in the world, as far as everything that's happening overseas, what do you feel about everything that's happening overseas?
So the first thing you deserve to hear is that your child who's in the military is doing something really, really important that has to be done. What do I mean by that?
Yes.
To live in a magnificent, I mean, this is a magnificent time in history, and it's a magnificent part of the world. I mean, it's a cold day here in Chicago, but people their stomachs are full. You're not seeing people starving and dying in the streets.
Yes,
We're seeing a place of, are you seeing people that are starving and dying?
The people overseas.
Oh, yes. In other words, what I mean to say is what happened here in the United States of America is unique in world history. And it's beginning, hopefully the world will become a better and better place. But what freedom has allowed people to do is build a society where the normal thing is that people have hot water in their homes. And the normal thing is that people can get food. And if a person here in town will stand outside a 7-Eleven for a couple of minutes, they will get a couple dollars and they'll be able to buy a meal. We have social programs, we have services. Generally, if there are people that are starving in our country
today.
So
that's not the question. The question is, what do you feel about what's happening overseas?
Okay, so I guess the reason that I'm qualifying that I believe that America is a worthwhile place is because I think that it has to be defended. And therefore, the first thing is a person who fights on behalf of their country is defending all the good things that exist in our country. The fact that you and I can sit and talk to each other, we're different races, I imagine we're different religions. I don't think you're Jewish.
I'm just a person. I don't separate the religion.
That's beautiful.
I believe that we are all people and everybody. I mean, we all equal. So I think that when it comes down to religion, it separates class of people. And it always do. And it separates people to where it's, can I be honest?
Sure.
I feel like separating religion is very equal to racism. And let me explain.
Yeah.
I think that because we all have the ultimate goal.
Do you mean that we should all pray in the same church?
Yeah. Because we all...
So I have to believe in Jesus?
No, you have to believe. We all believe in a higher being.
Well, there are atheists too.
That's okay.
Do they have to go to church?
No. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is when you separate the religions and everybody has like, I mean, it's okay.
Yeah.
But it kind of make people feel like one religion is better than the other. You know what I'm saying?
I will certainly agree with you on this. I think religion could be similar to race.
Yes.
But I don't think we should try to get rid of different races. I think the fact that there are different kinds of people, we need to learn to love each other, respect each other,
That's
and get
what I'm
along.
saying.
And I think the same would be true for religions. I think that I can look at somebody who says they worship Jesus, and I say, listen, I'm Jewish, and we don't, but I admire you, I respect you, I disagree on that subject with you, and that's okay. I don't have to agree with you about everything.
That's right.
But we're
Agree.
equal. And so I think that the United States of America is an example that took that idea and codified it and said all men are created equal. There's freedom of religion. You have to treat the other person's religion with respect and dignity. You can't just attack them. You can't discriminate and not give loans to people because you don't like the color of their skin, you don't like their religious experience or their beliefs. So I think the United States of America is a magnificent place with its flaws that has brought the world.
Everybody have flaws.
That's right.
Right. And
That's a good point.
It's no such thing as a perfect person. But
But if we don't fight for it, if people don't go out there and defend those who want to come and hurt people, who want to take down the concepts of freedom in the world, it won't exist.
Okay, so
So
with
your
that
child
being
is doing
said,
a very important thing.
Yes, I love my son, and I'm very proud of him. Piggybacking off of the question that I asked about what's going on overseas, and you said, because you're a rabbi and you a believer that we are all equal, but this is my personal opinion. I feel like what's going on overseas is an attack against Muslim people.
Do you mean?
It's an
I
attack
think there are
of
multiple fronts overseas. Do you mean what's happening in Israel and Palestine?
yes. I think that it's my first
Sure.
question was, what do you
Got
think
it.
of what's going
So at
on
first
in
when you said-
Israel and Pakistan?
Well, as far as I understand, I
Mhm.
think you mean Israel and Palestine. Is it possible?
Palestine. I'm sorry.
Sure, no problem.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's far away. Okay, I'll tell you what I think
Mhm.
about the Israel and Palestine situation. I don't think it's yet so directly related to the U.S. military. They don't have any soldiers there in that specific
They
region
do.
right now. Can you tell me more about that?
I mean, I'm not gonna tell more because my son is in the military, so I'm like,
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Sure.
So it's just I'm not gonna set my son up for failure.
I understand.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, of course.
So
anything you're not
it's-
supposed to talk about, we don't talk about.
Yeah. So
Okay,
it's just
So
that.
what's being presented in any event on the news
Yes.
is that the United States is not present in Israel or Palestine. That's what's being presented. I don't know that they should or shouldn't be. Like, I don't take such a position on geopolitics, but let me explain what's happening. The Jewish people
Mhm.
have a real problem. Wherever I go in this country, people say, go back to where you came from. People say it to me all the time.
Oh yeah, they said
Now,
to me all
where
the
did I
time.
come from? Where did I come from?
Right.
So I have a problem. Should I go back to Germany? I mean, they killed out all the Jews there. They put them in ovens. They killed, and we didn't really come from there. When you look at our DNA,
We from here. We here. A lot of us was
So that's
born
a-
here.
you know, that's true. I was born in Los Angeles, in Cedar Sinai.
So where you want me to go back to? Los Angeles.
Right. It's true. You know, but the concept that where do we come from? Where are we? And the real truth is that throughout history, the Jewish people were, the example I might give is if you had like a Cherokee Indian and people came in, took their land away, killed a lot of them and said, you don't live here anymore. And those people went to France. And then we got back together. We said, wait a minute, this was a terrible injustice. We are going to invite the Cherokee people back and give them their own land back.
But they didn't. America didn't do
If
that.
they were to do that, would you call the Cherokee guy who comes home a colonizer? Going back to his own land that his grandparents were on and were killed and thrown off of, and now he comes home. Is he a colonizer?
No, he's coming back to
He's coming back.
where he belongs. That it's their land.
Excellent. So from my perspective, that's what happened to the Jewish people.
Mhm.
They were thrown off every single time we pray. We face Jerusalem. And we mention it 3 times a day in our prayers. We think about it, we talk about it, and this is who we are. And when the Jewish people were successfully killed, and one country after another, the world got together and took a land which was owned by the British. There had been Jews there all the way back for the last 2,000 years, along with Arabs, and said, we're going to split this into 2 states. The people who were living there were not called Palestinians because they were Arab. Palestinian isn't Arab or Jewish. All Jews living there were Palestinians when it was under the British mandate. Before that, it was under the Turkish Empire. There had never been a Palestinian country or flag. And they said, listen, you guys you'll have this part, you'll have that part. The Palestinians who they are today, the Arabs from around the region said, absolutely not. We're going to kill every single one of them, from the river to the sea. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Doesn't mean that a Jewish person could own a home there or buy a car or pay taxes. In all Arab countries, Jews cannot live Jews are not allowed to live in Jordan. They're not allowed to live in Gaza. The whole Gaza was Judenrein. That's a word that Hitler crafted that means pure of Jews, zero Jews. So in Israel, you have members of the Knesset. That's the parliament. You have members of the Supreme
that's a
Court.
form of segregation. So America is segregated exactly like that. So it's
In America, we can all live.
No, in America,
You could be a Muslim, you could be a Jew. Isn't that right? You could be black, you could be white, you can live. I'm not saying it's perfect, but
Exactly.
the law doesn't say no Jews allowed.
Yeah, but do you think it's okay for? I mean, I'm not trying to put you
Yeah,
on the
no,
hot
you're
seat,
asking intelligent
but
questions.
I think that. Do you think that it's okay for Israel to the way that they're going about it? I believe in.
Do you think that the resistance, what happened on October 7th, do you think that that's an acceptable thing? I mean, it's the people that feel oppressed.
I think that a conversation can control any situation, and I think that.
So I have an idea for a
The
conversation.
approach will be less.
I'll go home to
killing. Mm-hmm.
my children. I have an idea. I'll tell them, kids, if somebody murders you in the street, right? You're Jewish, that's resistance. Anywhere in the world, in France, in LA, I'll say, children, if somebody rapes your brother and chops his head off in front of us,
No.
it's resistance. Do you understand that there's a movement in the world that believes that they're going on college campuses here in town, and any Jew, a Jew from America who's never been to Israel, who wants to go to class, but their last name is Rosenblatt, they will be barred, they will be attacked, they will not be allowed to go to class.
So us speaking is it's like a familiarization to me because I'm black. So everything that you are experiencing, I personally haven't experienced, but
I'm
I
glad
have
that you
sons,
didn't personally, but that's right.
and I have people that have
Our
experience.
histories are remarkably similar.
But, and this is what I say, because I say the same thing about people that speak on slavery. And listen, I love my ancestors and the Jewish people, whatever. But I think that if we keep revisiting the conversation of hate, that's all it's going to be. You know what I'm
now,
saying?
There's a group of people living around Israel on their borders
It's a group of people
who
here.
are announcing every day. They're announcing every day, if you let us in, we will kill and rape and murder.
That's what the KKK doing to us.
Listen, if that's happening here, my understanding is that the KKK has been so neutralized that even though they say horrible, unforgivable things about blacks and Jews, that they haven't killed or lynched a person in something like 25 years.
No.
That's my
Do
understanding.
you watch the news?
I do.
It's still lynching going on in the South.
Can you mention one time in the last 25 years that it happened?
One of my friends, I worked with her. Her nephew or cousin was in North Carolina, and they found him hanging from a tree. And this was a
That's
couple
horrible.
of months ago.
Wow.
So I think that if we keep separating,
Do you think that's okay?
No.
So then when I would bring it up that across the seas, my family, people who I know, who are peace-loving, kind, simple people, who live on a little kibbutz.
I'm
there are
not saying
people
that
living-
it's okay.
I mentioned that people are trying to
Okay.
come in here saying, well, that happens here too. I mean, if
Okay.
here it's atrocious and horrible, and I don't believe we have the similar problem here. It's something else. Over there you have people who are raised from the cradle to know that the greatest way to go to heaven and get your 70 virgins is to blow yourself up and kill. If you can take a Jew with you or an infidel, and they do suicide bombings.
Do you see who our president is?
Yes.
Okay, so he is enlightening the same thing. He have his, well, I'm not even going to say his.
Let's say that's
his,
I disagree with that, but let's say it's true.
because people, let me tell you something.
I don't see
This
how
is
it's
what
at
I
all on
believe.
point to.
Hate is something that people, they keep, like, it's just like me. Okay, I'm black. So if somebody called me the N-word, you know what I'm saying? It's all about the way that I respond to it, because you keep giving it life. You know what I'm saying?
But if there really are KKK people coming to kill African Americans,
I mean, sir,
they should be. No, I'll accept that. I'll
You-
accept
you-
your word for it. It's not part of.
don't
just
say
like
if they, because we all know that they
trusting you
exist.
that this is a
Yes.
real problem, that people
Yes.
are trying to kill you.
Yes.
Every single one of those people should be treated terribly harshly. They should be imprisoned for life. They should be. I mean, that cannot go on in our country. And I feel very much the same way about those who would have such an attitude towards Jews, just as I would about any other group.
I think that what's going on in Palestine, I think is not cause for, because even though it's a certain class of people,
they put on GoPros, they live
it's-
streamed it.
But it's little kids that's dying too. It's not just the people of
Unfortunately,
hate. It's
yeah.
children, and that's not right.
That's not good.
And it's
but
not
that's true of every
regardless
war
to-
in world history.
Regardless to how the corporate part of Palestine, because that's all the leaders and stuff.
So
it has
I'm gonna
nothing
ask you a
to
question.
do.
If there was a Klansman who brought two of his children, hugging them, and took a gun and came into an African American church holding that gun, trying to shoot people, but he was holding two children in front of him, would you say that somebody in that church who has a gun, maybe it's in the South, he's carrying a weapon, has the right to just shoot until those three are all dead?
Of course, I'm not saying that.
Would you say that, or would you say that he
Of
could?
course, I'm not saying that.
No, I'm asking. I'm not sure if. Do you agree that it would be okay
No.
to defend the lives of the 1,000 people in that church and children at the expense of this man and his two children?
I think that.
And I would say I say shoot to kill. That man is the murderer. He's the one using
So
children
would
as a
you kill
human
his
shield.
Children?
Not on purpose. I would shoot for him, but absolutely, I would kill those three to save the lives of the thousands in the church. And I would say that man is fully responsible. I would cry the rest of my life for those children. But that man killed those children, not the innocent people that are parishioners in that church. And that's an important question to think about. I think intelligent people could discuss that.
Yeah.
In my opinion, that's what's happening to those children, those poor children in Gaza, is like what happened in Japan when they dropped the bomb. That it does affect children. It's very unfortunate. And the people morally responsible are those who put those kids in the line of fire.
So, I mean, we
I
can
want to
agree.
just say one more thing. That's right. We have to agree.
To disagree.
Not only that, we have to
Yeah.
agree to love each other because
Yeah,
you seem like a
yeah.
lovely person.
Yeah.
You seem like a
I mean,
thoughtful person.
I just wanted to ask the question because, again, my son is in the military, and I think that a lot of the young men that are in the military, they are not going to these countries for hate. It's
No.
not hate. You know what I'm
They
saying?
should know they're defending good. They're defending good.
They not all the time defending good. You know what I'm saying? They're defending something that they don't know about.
Right.
The perception is that they're going to defend the country, but it's a little bit deeper than them going to defend the country, and they don't know what's going on. So they are there.
I can see that perspective.
Yeah. So
I want to tell you, God bless your son for his service.
Yes,
And
I
God bless you for
appreciate
your
that.
sacrifices as a military mom.
Thank you.
And I wish you all the best.
Yes.
And I'm looking forward to meeting this next gentleman.
Thank you.
Hello, sir.
Hi, my name is Marcin.
It's nice to meet you. I'm Rabbi Schaff. I'm from Los Angeles, and I'm visiting some family here. And I have this series on YouTube called I'm Orthodox Rabbi Ask Me Anything.
Where are your ancestors from?
My ancestors, that's a good question. I have ancestors from all across, it depends how far back you go. When we do a DNA,
100 years.
100 years, they were born in America and Canada.
Oh, okay.
So everybody was here. But my grandfather on my mother's side was born in Poland.
My country. I'm from Poland.
How do you like that?
Which region? You don't
Oh
know.
my goodness. I do know, but it's escaping me for a second.
No, just I was just curious.
Yeah. Galicia is what we call it, what the Jews call it.
Galicia, right?
Galicia.
That's the southern Poland, southern eastern Poland. I just read a book about
But the Galicianers.
Yeah. That was what was the Tom Roth? That was he was from Jewish family living in Brooklyn initially, I think. And
I'm not familiar.
what was that? Call it Sleep. Very good book.
Call it sleep.
Call it Sleep. Very good book. You know, I can recommend it to you. However, you know, it's not about Orthodox Jews. It's about normal. I mean, you know, just the people, people. And I think, you know, that was when I read this book. It was like, you know, I was thinking this book could be written by Paul. That's what I
So
think.
when did you come to the United States?
On Monday.
Is that right?
Yeah. That's a business trip.
You live presently in Poland.
Yeah.
And you're visiting here in Chicago for business.
Yeah.
And you ran into Rabbi Schaff here in the front of the water tower.
Listen, I do random things when I visit other cities. Just like, you know, I just went to the bookstore and I was to buy a book for my wife, and finally I booked something for her and something for me.
So nice.
I think so.
I hope she'll be pleased.
I saw you, so I was like, well, maybe I can ask a question.
Yeah, what do you say? What's on your mind?
No, I'm interested. What's your perception of change?
Of change.
Of change. But shortly, not without many words.
I think there's two kinds of change. Sometimes something changes from what it really is into a temporary state that's not natural to that person, place, or thing.
What's okay?
And
Go on.
sometimes a person blossoms into who and what they really are, and it's not actually change. So, for example, when people say change the world, I love the world. I'd like to improve the world. So you can change it by improving it, or you can change it by ruining it. Just changing is not ideal for me. Does that make sense? Change, when I have a child, I'd like them to change, but really I know inside they're good, they have a good heart, they're a human being, and I want them to develop, to grow up to be kind and responsible, caring, understand? So change, I think, can be, from that question, that's what I would say. I would say you can either change into something that you really were, and then it's not really a change.
I think that you believe that the world is static, right? You rather say this way, that the world is static.
Okay, I mean, you can either add or take away mass, right? Like, I mean, I guess, right?
I mean, I believe the world is a change. That everything
The world is constantly changing.
World is change or constantly changing, or so that the natural state of the world is not static. It's a change.
Correct.
But correct. That's what you said. But you religious people, I mean, not only Orthodox Jews, but other religious people, you believe that the world is static.
I don't really know what you mean by that.
I mean,
we believe that the world was once created, so it had a beginning, and
we don't
Aristotle
know this.
did not.
You don't know this.
Okay, that's why I said we believe. Aristotle taught that the world was eternal, just like the rays of the sun. If there's a sun, there are rays. If there's God, there's a world. That's what Aristotle taught. And every serious philosopher thought that the Jews and the Christians and those who believed there was a beginning were completely off the wall. They thought they were crazy. When the Hubble Space Telescope discovered that the world is clearly expanding in the way that mathematically there must have been some sort of Big Bang where this universe that we have began.
Yeah, but there was the other theory that that there's Big Bang, then there is the end, and there's another. So basically, it can be like
the world
ramjet.
There's a writer named Paul Davies who says that if you can imagine a band of scientists climbing a mountain and they get to the top after many years and they find a whole bunch of religious theologians sitting there saying, hey, we've been here for thousands of years.
No.
The idea that the world we're in, at one point...
let's come back to the initial question. The
idea that our world didn't exist and now exists, that doesn't mean it's a static world, but that's what every religious monotheist believes.
Yeah, but we say that the world is expanding, right? So basically everything is changing all the time.
Yes.
Yeah, so when there's, religious people usually think that the world, I mean, always think.
Why should that be?
Because, for example, they keep...
in terms of what we experience,
they keep the old traditions. They keep the old traditions.
The old tradition of Judaism is that the world was created and continues to develop.
Yeah, but I think, that's kind of desperately keeping the old traditions. However, they should be all time ago given up. It's like, I mean, it's about, not about only Judaism, it's about every religion, I think. So basically, some traditions were developed like 3,000 years ago when Judaism was created, 1,000 years before the Christ, right? So that was something like this, 3,000 years ago. So basically that time people lived in completely different environment, had different traditions, everything was different. And now we move to this modern world. So basically, maybe some elements should be dropped.
First of all, you're right. You're absolutely correct.
But I am wrong, right?
You're right, because if you look at Jews living today and you look at Jews living 3,000 years ago, you'll find that it's a very dynamic religion. It doesn't look the same.
I know, but at the same time you keep some elements.
I'll tell you what, right, here's what we're trying to keep. The more things change, the more the real deep, for example, what is human happiness? What is a marriage, right? How do we treat our children? Those teachings from 2,000-3,000 years ago were as true as they are today. What fulfills a man? What fulfills a woman? They will have different applications because I don't own a horse anymore, right? I don't live in an agricultural rural place. But the deepest secrets of the human psyche and the human experience are absolutely identical. And therefore, it's like math. Math 3,000 years ago, 1 + 1 was still 2, and 2 + 2 was 4. Did they know how to build a bridge with that?
It depends upon the system, where you count. Really?
The truths behind mathematics
because
were always the same. Would you agree with
systems.
that? Because it's science. Science was science. So the way that we understand.
It's deeper because in fact the science was created like a few hundred years ago.
No,
before
the
that
science was understood by humans. Diseases passed the same way for the last 3,000, 4,000, 5,000
every
years.
time.
Every time. We didn't understand contagion and infection, right, and illness until very recently. But the science was always science. The understanding of science was lacking in human beings.
Okay.
Right? So what I'm saying, to answer your question, I'm claiming
I'm said about what I said when I said science. I mean scientific
knowledge,
method,
and I meant
scientific
the
method.
truths, the truths of the universe are identical today as they were 3, 4, 5,000 years ago. Whether or not, right? In other words, whether or not something is true is different than whether it's understood by human beings. And Torah, the Torah, which is what we call the Bible, means instructions. Torah means instructions. A Mora is an instructor, a teacher. So Torat Chaim, it's what we call the living Torah, means instructions for living. And we understand that behind everything in the Torah, for example, the Sabbath, where you stop for 24 hours and you don't do any creative work and you spend time praying with your family, but you don't. So today that means you cannot use electricity. We don't light fires. So in the old days, a guy would bring his horses in from the field. It's never been more relevant.
But you switch on the lights?
Today, we will not switch on the lights.
Do you think this is rational?
Yes, and not only that, what it does for my family, that we don't use electricity and use fire.
At all?
At all. Well, you can leave it on before. And you could even leave things on a timer, but that we don't do it. So we won't get in a car. So what happens every Saturday is we sit down, we go to the synagogue, right? We come home, we sit down for a meal together. Nobody has a cell phone. Nobody could turn on a television. And we talk to each other, we sing, we play games.
That's
24 hours of heaven. And I have to tell you, it's so obviously intelligent for any group of people to do this. Anyone has young children,
that's good.
the addiction to screens and the things. That's a piece of wisdom that applied in farming days.
That's good. But what I heard about something like this, that you can avoid some unpleasant things bound with the because the traveling is forbidden on Sabbath, right? On Shabbat.
That's not quite true. There's a number of things we don't do. There are 39 specific things that are all creative acts.
Yeah.
And we don't do this because God created the world and rested on the seventh day, which is obviously a metaphor for something.
Yeah.
And therefore the Bible says we should also refrain from creating. And the rabbis of the Talmud listed the 39 forms of human creation. So that itself is very, very interesting because each one of those adds value to an object based upon human creativity. So one example would be transporting things, carrying things, right? Import, export, transportation is a tremendously brilliant thing, and it changes value. And there are 38 other ones, including lighting a fire. So lighting fires, right, is a valuable human act. You take 2 rocks or 2 sticks and you turn it to fire. That's something we don't do on the Sabbath. Now, every time you drive a car, right, you would be pouring gas on the fire and igniting fire. So we wouldn't drive a car on the Sabbath.
So you could go in taxi?
So in theory, a person could go in a car driven, based upon that prohibition alone, a person could drive in a car. However, they wouldn't be able to open and shut the door. There are other things that fall into other categories. Someone else would have to do it for them.
Or you have shiksa, right? Shiksa is the...
Shiksa means a Gentile woman.
I heard now.
So that's what people used to call like their cleaning help or.
Yeah. But the goyish, right? The goy.
The goy, the Shabbos goy.
Yeah.
So a Shabbos goy.
No, we use the word shiksa in Polish as well. I suppose that comes from
Yiddish.
Yiddish, probably. I think so. But we called it as just as a young girl. But
interesting.
Yeah, really. That's kind of some of these words we still use.
Wow. I never knew that. Shiksa means a young girl in Polish vernacular.
Shiksa.
Shiksa.
That's the same word, but we pronounce it a little bit differently.
Yeah, that's the same word. Wow.
So basically, I was just curious because
it's a very intelligent question. The one sentence response is that in terms of form, how things look, those things change very much in history. But in terms of substance, the underlying beliefs, right, in the existence of morality, right and wrong, right, from an infinite source, which is what we call God, right?
Yeah.
And the fact that there are demands on every single human being to live a moral life, and that they're very specific, that a person really has to behave a certain, they have to give charity, they have to live a certain way,
Yeah.
and those are what we call the mitzvahs, some of which are clearer to understand, and some seem like ritual.
Yeah.
We believe all of those are still relevant and improve your life and make the world a better place. So in substance, I believe things really haven't changed in the world, because in substance, it's about instructions for living. And we will see that telling little boys that there's no difference between boys and girls isn't good for human beings. And I know that because it says
Once again?
it's not good for human
but,
beings. In my opinion, telling little boys and girls,
Once again, the whole sentence. I haven't.
little boys and girls,
Yeah.
being told that there is no distinction between male and female, and that it's all identical, and you can switch back and forth as you like, depending on how you feel your gender is. I believe not only that we will see in our lifetime, in my lifetime, I believe I'll see how destructive that was. It's in Genesis, male and female, he created them. Human beings.
Yeah, but it's not. I mean, it's not like 0 and 1.
Correct.
Okay, because for example, you know, let's say the sex. I mean, you know, I don't believe that you can switch it back and forth, but in the same time, I believe, you know, that we are equal. So
Yes.
basically, there are no predefined gender roles. So let's say, you know, I hire women in my company. One of them is manager, for example.
You should hire whoever's best for the job.
Yeah. But basically, I think, you know, that there are no predefined roles.
So do you think that for construction, physical construction, that men have an advantage over females?
Do you know what machines
Sometimes,
are?
right?
You know what machines
Yes.
are?
For manual labor, your good
Machines.
joke, your cute answer means that you agree with me. And could it be possible?
Listen.
Could it be possible that there are areas, for example, let's pick something that I think women can often be better
I
at.
interrupt you?
Women are very nurturing.
Could
they be better at
I have to interrupt you. There's in Poland. There's this right-wing libertarian party called Confederation, and the fans of this party they are mostly young men, and their favorite joke is the feminism ends when you have to pick up your closet or something like this up on the 10th floor. And then of course, you know, that's ridiculous. That's ridiculous because everybody's calling now the moving company or something like this. There are lifts. So basically, nobody is you know, just doing all this stuff by himself. So I believe I have one daughter and 3 sons. How many kids do you have?
I have 7 children.
7. Do you
I have 5 girls and 2 boys.
Do you educate your daughters?
Yes.
Oh, so you are progressive man.
No, that's an ancient Jewish tradition from thousands of years. Jewish women could always read and write.
No, that's not. Be serious. Be serious. University, not reading and writing.
My daughters, I would like them to have the same opportunities as my son,
It's wonderful.
and yet I would also like them to embrace their femininity. So I believe, as an example, that a very, very high percentage of women will not. They should have their choice. No one should bully them into it.
Everybody should
But-
have the choice.
and yet-
Everybody, not
correct.
only women, right?
And yet, for women historically, very different things bring them happiness than men.
Do you fight with your daughters?
Not really, no. 100%.
So you are a patriarch.
I love them very much.
You are a
We get along.
patriarch, right?
A patriarch, is that the word?
Patriarch, right? Patriarch. Sorry for the
No, no problem,
mispronunciation. So you are a patriarch in your family, right?
I'm the father.
My kids all the time discuss things with me. All the time. We discuss things all the time and we fight, I mean, you know, in peaceful way.
Yeah, sure. Yes,
Without-
we have a lot of debates and conversations. That's for sure.
Yeah, so
Lots and lots.
So,
'Cause that's
okay.
a Jewish tradition is you know,
I know,
studying, and so there's a lot of that. For
So
sure.
what do they tell you, your daughters?
I'll tell you something interesting. I learned, for example, there's an ancient teaching in the Talmud, which says that when you teach boys, you have to teach differently than women, because women are more sensitive. They're more emotionally in touch, and you have to talk softly to women. I've taught in high school for many years. Girls that are ages 16, 17,
One
18,
moment,
and boys that are
moment.
ages 16,
One
17,
moment.
18.
You know-
This is very important, what I'm telling you. What I'm telling you is I learned that substantively, even if they're learning the same
Don't-
object, I believe
Let's switch to boys. Let's switch to boys.
boys, you
Why-
can be tougher with them. And they love it.
No.
I disagree with you. That's crazy. They say, Rabbi, no way, and they get up in my face.
No, they
and
need attention. They need to be hugged.
Yes. And they need to play basketball with them. They need to dance with them, get in the circle. And for sure, all this emotional bonding. I'll tell you, that I taught in a girls' high school. So I would regularly go, and this is true, in multiple girls' high schools. I would go into go down the hallway, and someone would come out of the bathroom.
I think that you speak too fast. And
I'm sorry, I know.
No, that's okay. But
I think quickly, and I want to give you the message.
you don't think when you speak.
No, that's not true. That's not true.
You are educated in speaking. That's why you speak so fast. You don't think.
I'm speaking a language that's not your mother tongue. And because of that, it may seem even more rapid than it actually is.
I think that less words is better.
That could be.
So is there any other brothers here? No. This weekend there is the Purim. No, what's the
Passover?
Passover. Sorry,
yeah.
I have that. I work with my friend. With him, I work as a Jewish, but we do that. But he's not Orthodox or something like this. So basically, we are working this. Maybe I shouldn't say this.
I won't explode.
No. So, okay. Thank you for the conversation.
It was nice to meet you.
That was the first time I was talking to Orthodox rabbi.
Well,
Yeah.
I enjoyed speaking to you too.
Yeah.
I wish you great success on your business trip. I hope it really goes well.
Working with a program called Hands of Peace. It's a peace bridging program that brings Israelis and Palestinians together. And I don't know, since like October 7th, I have so many questions going on in my mind, because the whole thing that happened made me question my core beliefs and my core identity and where I stand. Like, what are my views on what's going on? So the main question that I have in my head, can I?
Yeah, of course.
So the main question that I have in my head is, my family used to believe that the origin of the Palestinians were, not all of them, but a really good percentage were in origin Jewish. And through the time they just converted, and we believe also that we are Semite as well. And I believe that people should just coexist regardless their beliefs. And the Holy Land is just important for everyone. It's important for Jewish, important for Christians, important for Muslims, and I think everyone should be able to just live equally, And I was born there.
What city were you born in?
Shem, Nablus,
Sure.
and originally from Haifa, but after they immigrated to Nablus, to the West Bank, and I belong there. I don't see any other place as a home, and I just want to live there peacefully with anyone who belongs there, and he sees himself belongs in there. I don't know.
Do you feel like, is your experience that Israelis want to have all non-Jews out of the country? There have been politicians who've said that over the years, like Mayor Kahana and others, and they were considered extreme fringe elements.
I think there is a majority in the Israeli society calling for the land to be fully Jewish, and also
Meaning that no non-Jews could live in the country.
No Palestinians, Christians, Muslims.
Interesting. Because what's interesting is that in all of the Arab countries, not only is that the reality, it's also the belief. So Jews can be let into Qatar for something for the Olympics, but no Jews in Qatar. In the Arab world, if we would do a two-state solution, there would be one state that's only Arab and no Jews allowed. There are big signs in Israel that say this is Area B, right?
Yeah, and that's
Area.
ridiculous.
So,
because, I have Israel.
are there any signs in Israel that says only Jews allowed? Is there any place in the country where it says that?
No, but basically you cannot enter any. I am from Nablus, but I can't enter any place.
But it's not because you're a Muslim. In other words,
I am Palestinian.
because you're Palestinian. In other words,
We
it's
have
not
separate
because you...
IDs.
Right, it's a different country, it's a different place, it's a different territory.
It's basically the same country.
It's under a different government, it's under a different... Right?
Have you been there before?
I've not been able to go into the Palestinian cities.
Yeah.
I've always wanted
So,
to.
just
People
to
tell me
give you-
your life will be in danger. Don't go.
No. If you enter the West Bank, I guarantee you that
If I would get on the bus to Ramallah from outside the
100% you will be safe. 100%.
really,
I've
just dressed like this, I don't have to
Just
pretend
like
I'm an
this.
American tourist.
just like this.
So why are there signs saying it's not safe? You know what I'm talking about? The signs that Area A.
If you enter with like
No, just
some areas, like you enter, it's absolutely not safe. But if you enter Ramallah dressing like this and doing nothing, standing in the street, I bet you will not be in danger. I guarantee
Wow.
you. will.
But do you agree with that if there would be a two-state solution? I mean, I remember when they gave back the land in Gaza. It was called Gush Katif. I remember I asked the people living there. I was studying for the year in Jerusalem, and I went there for a weekend. And I asked the people. I said, "Why can't you stay? You'll pay your taxes." They said, "No Jews may remain." On the land, I said, "You'll pay for your house." It doesn't. It seems to me that it's very much the other way in the world. In Israel, the Supreme Court members are Arab, and members of the Knesset are Arab. And I go shopping, and I see people that look like Jews and look like Arabs, and I see that basically they seem to be getting along in their societies. They seem to be getting along. I go to Rehov Paran in Ramat Eshkol, right, which is not far from Harat Sofim, and I'll go get a cup of coffee, and I'll see two Arab women sitting there at the waffle bar with their children. I'll go to the Tipat Halav. I lived there with my wife and children for a little while.
There are many societies where Jews and Arabs are really integrated well. Have you been in Haifa?
Yes.
Yeah. Haifa is the best example. You can see the coexistence in every street, in every corner.
I believe it's very possible. My experience,
It is
certainly I would say most people who I know would absolutely say that that's the ideal. A Zionist will believe that they have a right to there being something called a Jewish country in general, that just like there could be an Arab country and there could be a Christian country that celebrates certain holidays and has a certain culture, but that everybody's welcome.
different opinions on how people approach the conflict. I think the best approach to that, to create a one-state solution, everyone who was born there can get their fully equal rights, and I bet there will not be one single person who says no to that, because everyone is tired there. It's 75 years of unnecessary blood. It has to stop. It has to stop because
I think that I really believe that if the Israelis put down all their weapons, that they would all be massacred. I think that. But I think that if the Palestinians, if the Hamas, right? I shouldn't say the Palestinians. If the militant groups would put down their weapons and say, then we would go and hug them.
No, then they
That's
will
what I
kick
believe.
all the Palestinians out.
I don't believe that. I believe we would hug and kiss
It
them.
happened before. It happened before many times. Since 1948, it happened.
What happened in 1948 is that they rejected the UN partition plan and said, from the river to the sea, we will wipe every Jew off of this land. That's what happened. That's a real history. And all the countries from every side said, we're going to wipe out Israel. That's not how you understand what happened?
What happened from 1948 that was not a fair to land, and when they divided the land, they did not divide it equally.
But it was nobody's land. I mean, it was the... Okay. It was the British land. It was
we
the...
were living there.
Yeah, so
How we ended up there if it was nobody's land?
No, it was British. It was Turkish. It was...
It was under British colonialism, but it was the British colonialism. That was
No, they made up the name. The name Palestine is very recent. You know that, right?
Have a good day.
So I do have a quick question.
Great.
So coming from my background, I am an Orthodox Christian. My family comes from Serbia, so that's how we look through stuff. And the only question I had is, if Jesus is the Messiah and he did all those miracles, how will you know when the actual Messiah comes?
That's a really good question. It's a fair question. It's an authentic question. Essentially, why don't we accept those stories? Okay, so the first thing is that we believe that Jesus, in other words, we'll accept if Jesus was really the product of a virgin birth, then he does not have a father. God would be his father. But our tradition is very clear that it has to be a male descendant of the line from King David, from Judah. So the first thing is he doesn't fulfill that. The second thing is that we have a tradition that the Messiah will not die. If the Messiah dies for any reason whatsoever, he may have even been a potential Messiah. In other words, God may have sent somebody based upon, but if he died, then he's not the Messiah. A third thing is we expect a lot of things to happen. So somebody performing miracles, it's possible. It's actually in Deuteronomy. It says that if a prophet comes, I think it's chapter 12, but it's in Deuteronomy, Parshas Re'eh. We organize it by the Parshas, by the sections. It says that if God will send you a prophet and he performs signs and miracles, and then he says not to perform one of the things in the Torah, in the Bible, don't listen to him, for God is testing you. So in my opinion, even if somebody came and performed the miracles that Jesus was doing, that wouldn't make that person the Messiah. It might be a test from God. But the final thing is the lion, right, and the lamb, okay, it says a little different there. It says the wolf, but the world peace that we're expecting is going to come when the Messiah comes. There's no talk in the entire Old Testament, the Torah, about there being a second coming or something. So if you tell me I have to wait till the second coming, then I'll wait till the second coming. I'd be happy if God sends a Messiah. You understand? But in other words, since we're waiting for a Messiah who's going to usher in an era of understanding among nations, there's no more wars. On a daily basis, the amount of people that are being killed tells you that the Messiah is not here. So I don't even know what it means that there's a first and second coming. I believe God can revive the dead. So he can send whoever he wants at any time. But these are some of the reasons why, even if the entire story as it's told was true, I wouldn't accept. So when a Messiah comes who is wise and great and performs miracles and brings peace to the world and does the things that the prophets promised, and we both think that day is coming, you just think he's been here before.
Yeah.
And I think he's be a new guy. So, at least we're waiting for the same thing.
Yeah.
But that's a big one. And then obviously there are other challenges we have with Christianity, in the sense that we really think that when God made a covenant and said you've got to observe these things and not those things, we think he really meant it. And we don't think that someone showing up at the time of Paul and saying, I had a vision, and now you don't need to do circumcision, and now you don't need to eat the kosher food, we don't trust him. God told us at Sinai, in front of 600,000 men and their families, that this is the way you're supposed to live. So someone showing up and saying, yeah, but I had a vision, and now you don't have to, we just don't believe them. Probably a similar way you might look at the Mormons. I don't know if you understand their story, but someone had a vision. It's like, listen, I think you're a good man. You might even really believe that you saw that. Yeah. So we look very much to Paul and the invention of Christianity, very much the way a Christian would look at the Mormons. Even though I love the Mormons. God forbid, I don't want them to suffer. I don't want them to go to hell. I love them. Does this help clarify that position?
Yeah, I understand that position. But coming from, I'm just putting my 2 cents into
it. Of course, yeah.
I'm not as informed or such as that, but I picked up my Bible, I started reading, and the Gospel of Matthew, I believe, when reading it, the first few pages actually have that whole descendants from David, and
that's very good that you know that.
Yeah, so it has that, and I believe one other gospel has it.
It shows it to Joseph.
Yeah.
Which is very interesting, because that has my question.
So
do you believe Joseph was actually his father?
I believe it was more so. I believe God was his father, and at the end of the day, it's just breaking it down, Joseph was the human male to look over.
Look over him. You don't think he actually conceived him physically, right?
No.
Because I have heard Christians say that they believe in the virgin birth as a metaphor.
Yeah.
And they think
I've seen that position before.
To the point that there's some who even will say that could be that he was created by someone other than Joseph.
Yeah.
And he was a mom's, which a bastard. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't say this because I wouldn't want to offend somebody's religion. I have heard this from, that they would be willing to accept, and that just shows the level of redemption from sin. Yeah. That he was nevertheless the child of God. And so I have heard that said before.
Yeah.
And, but you're not saying that. You take it a literalist position.
So
God,
the way
birth.
I look at it is more so kind of blanking right now, but John the Baptist did kind of he was the setup for Jesus to follow, and coming into like a literal idea, in the Bible says, lean not on your own understanding.
Yeah.
And sometimes the human just can't comprehend that sort of spiritual access. The idea of that Jesus wasn't born from man, but from God. And
I don't have a hard time understanding the idea. I
just
don't
like
accept
that
it.
overall, because we're here today doing
Yeah.
this.
Right.
So
But you're using a verse, right? You're quoting "Don't lean on your understanding," and you're understanding that a certain way. You're
Yeah.
using human reason to explain to me the limits of human reason. But you're using reason. So if we're using reason, we have to be fair. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
And part of human reason is, listen, God definitely, we both agree that God gave the entire Old Testament and that all of that is authentic and true. So when he says he will not change his mind, when he says it's an eternal covenant, when he says these words, when he gave the 10 Commandments, he says, honor the Sabbath. Does he really want people to do that? When did it change? Why would he have changed it? Where does it say that? Who made it up? So I don't accept any of the New Testament as
Yeah.
divine.
yeah,
And the burden of proof is not for someone to come and respond, which, if I'm not misunderstanding you, and I've heard this before, say, listen, you're relying too much on your mind. You have to have faith. Okay, but should I just spin a roulette wheel and have faith in whichever religion comes out?
no, because like Jesus did say that the Old Testament is still true. And
He
you
says he
gotta
comes
follow
not to change any of it.
Yeah,
But the followers of Jesus don't do that.
yeah,
You don't keep the Old Testament.
but a lot of people don't, because
I mean, maybe you do. I shouldn't have assumed that.
yeah, I mean,
It's Passover. Saturday night is Passover. You're
Yeah.
going to go 7 days without eating any leavened bread?
no.
No.
So I don't follow the Old Testament.
Why not? Jesus said you should. You just said.
Jesus said that he's not here to change anything from the Old Testament, but to bring a new. Like, it's
But so then you have to keep the old one?
So what I'm trying to get to is
Yeah.
the fact that Jesus wasn't here to be like to bash the Old Testament, to go against its teachings, but to bring new understanding, because he came to wash away the sins of the world. He was there to be crucified and resurrect from the dead and ascend to heaven within 40 days.
I mean, the Old Testament seems explicit that no person can die for someone else's sins.
See, you caught me there, because like I'm not as informed, I don't know, but at the end of the day, I just know
This
that,
is a big difference. In other words,
Yeah.
we really don't believe. We do believe that one person's suffering, like in Isaiah 53, right? That the suffering of one person can have a very powerful impact and a healing impact on another person. So when one person suffers, another person learns a lesson from that and grows, right?
Yeah.
When people are the grandchildren of Holocaust martyrs who were killed, but maybe someone survived in the family, and they look to that and they say, now it's my job to fill the world with light, to do good things because of what happened. So sometimes there can be a healing process by watching someone else suffer and learning from it, but just the idea that one person somewhere can die and that automatically gets rid of the sins of another person was, in my opinion, it was a very pagan belief of like child sacrifice and other things, and we stopped believing in that. And it only resurfaced in Christianity when Christianity was starting to be spread outside of Judaism to the rest of the world. And what they did is they incorporated all the other beliefs and sort of made them Christian. So that's where you get Christmas trees and all the other things. And it could be this very smart tactic to like use the beliefs people already have and make them kosher, so to speak, make them Christian, so that I can understand that, but I don't see it as it's a big problem when the things, for the Jews, it's a big problem when we are very committed, we're very knowledgeable. We study the Torah, we believe in it, we really think God came at Sinai and really has expectations of us. It doesn't say anywhere in the Old Testament that if you sin, you don't go to heaven. It doesn't say that. It says if you sin, you should repent. And when there were sacrifices, you brought sacrifices. Not sacrifice. God says, I don't even want the sacrifices if your mouth and your heart are in the right place. And no matter what a person has done, they can repent. Between them and God, that means to commit to try to be better and to feel remorse for what they did and confess their sins only to God. So that sort of behavior is what we're still doing today. Just like he said to do, we're doing our best, but we're doing what he said to do there. And for someone to come and try to convince, I have to tell you, if somebody come and put a gun to my head and says, I'll kill you and I'll kill your whole family, unless you denounce Judaism, accept Christianity. I would do what all my ancestors did and just take the bullet every time. So that's what we're dealing with now. I don't think you would put a gun to someone's head. You seem like a lovely guy. And I do think that hopefully we're in a good place with Jewish and Christian relations.
Yeah.
Where at this point in the world, who else believes that a boy is a boy and a girl is a girl? Just said, like, male and female are created. Like, who else believes the most basic parts of morality other than, you know? So I think we have a lot in common, and I think we're waiting for a similar thing.
Yeah.
But I don't see how a Jew could become convinced. It hasn't really happened much in the last couple thousand years.
Can I go off your first point real quick?
Of course.
So I like how you like. I understand where that's coming from. The whole idea of like a man from God knows where came and said he's sacrificing his life for my sins. Why should I believe that? What's that whole understanding? It's the whole idea. It comes down to the crucifixion of Jesus Christ and then the resurrection. But I think the thing that's kind of getting overshadowed is the parables and the teachings and the understandings that come before. I know you brought up some ideas, but I feel like for a man to be that influential, to spread the word of the Lord and to understand that it's going to be difficult to enter through the kingdom of heaven. As he said, it's easier for a camel to find a needle in a haystack, to go through a needle in a haystack.
Go through the eye, right?
Yeah. So I feel like what makes a Christian, like at the end of the day, I'm a believer in Jesus Christ. Like that's where my soul is. And it's not just because he died and resurrected, but he showed me how to be a man. He showed me the way of life. He showed me how to be the best version of myself.
What is that? Is that in his writings? Is there something he wrote that tells you about that?
I can't get it off the top of my head, but yes, there's a feeling. And
is there something he taught you that isn't explicit in God's word before that?
I feel like because God gave us free will to be able to walk around, do with the things we do, meet the people we meet, talk to people that we talk, you weave your way through society and learn and take these learnings and understandings and apply it to your daily life. And then just like, if you decide one day I'm going to pick up my Bible, I did it a year and a half ago and I read all of the New Testament and I just started reading the Old Testament. I'm through Genesis, Exodus, and
you're in Leviticus now?
Yeah. And so I'm
so that's a little tougher read. Leviticus is a little confusing. But then it gets Numbers is a little easier. It's more stories.
I'm doing my best to understand, and just like the parables give you an understanding of how to be, but I feel like at the end of the day,
I would only, this is again from my perspective, I'm not trying to dissuade you of your beliefs, but I would tell you, I suspect that the things that you're describing that train you how to be a better man and a wiser person, more compassionate, more understanding, all the good values, I would suspect that if you look a little more, those are all things that are from the Old Testament and pre-existed Jesus, and that he was a loyal Jew, so he kept the Old Testament, and perhaps he taught those things in an effective way. But in other words, I think that if you do a little more homework, it's almost like a person, and if you know this, a friend of mine has a sign in his office which says like, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take, and then it says, Michael Scott, and then underneath it says Wayne Gretzky or something, right? No, this guy is quoting, right? Another person saying that, like, so, which I think is very funny. It's Wayne Gretzky and then Michael Scott at the bottom. I guess that's how it goes, right? In other words, it may very well be that the things that you're identifying are not uniquely the teachings of Jesus. It may be. It's something to consider. But the other thing I would just tell you is that Maimonides, one of the great medieval Jewish scholars, he lived in the 1100s, and he writes at the end of his work, which was heavily censored. People didn't like this, but nowadays it's such an eye-opening thing. He tells Jews, he says, Jesus and Muhammad were ways that God used to pave the path towards the Messiah. He says, because it used to be people in the world didn't have any understanding of the concept of God. Now they know there's a God. They know that there's such a thing as commandments and instructions and rules for living. You got to be a good person. You got to live a certain way. He says, not everybody used to believe that. Now some say, well, there were mitzvahs. You don't have to keep them anymore. Others say, there are these, but we only use some of them, and etc. He says, but each one of these brings to their societies and to the world a knowledge of God that is more accurate and more refined and is leading towards the ultimate positive thing. So it's teaching Jews to look at Christianity and Islam, who they suffered a lot under, to say, like, these are ultimately positive things to the people that you live around. So that even if they're believing in Jesus and we don't believe that that exact expression of monotheism is the right one, but we say this is good for you because it will teach you to be a better man and a kinder person and morality. And so I think it's not a surprise to me that you would say that your engagement in Christianity, I would much rather hear that somebody is a Christian than an atheist or something.
Yeah.
Because you're on the right track. But I think at the point that we diverge, we have clarity. I see where you're coming from. You know what I'm thinking. Tell me your name.
Mickey,
Mickey. Rabbi Schaff.
nice to meet you.
I enjoyed meeting you a lot. We had a great time making this video, and we really hope that you enjoy it too. Leave us some feedback. It's always so appreciated. And stay tuned for more great stuff coming.